So good morning, everyone, of day 2 of the Quest for True Belonging. I am William Flay, the founder and director of MNPC, and I am joined by my co-host Imani Surindo. And we have a special guest star today, 9Fehinti Balogun, and he is a British actor. He works in theater. He's got a Netflix series coming up soon, and we're just so pleased to have him. And I wanted to also just say to everyone that the Quest for True Belonging is an opportunity to really connect with that sense of who we are, where we've come from, but also where we're going. And as we explore these themes around what does belonging mean, sometimes when we come into these spaces, what we're actually doing is shedding rather than getting stuff. And sometimes in that shedding process is when we begin to discover our true essence. And as we go deeper into our practice, as we slow down, maybe we can begin to process some of those items like microaggressions, difficult conversations, losses, grief, traumas. So we need to first be present with some of those things that we're carrying, some of those really difficult challenges that a lot of us have been met with over the last couple of years, which have been extraordinary. And many of us, as Angela Clark was saying, have suffered multiple losses or have seen multiple losses. So as brown and black bodies, we're constantly re-traumatized by what we're seeing around us. But this is a really lovely opportunity for us to actually hold each other in a really different energy, which is what we often don't get, as Rhonda was saying, isn't it? That in that story of slavery with that lock, that we don't often hear these stories of triumph and love. And I mean, I've just never heard of story quite like that around slavery. And it's great because this is what we're creating here. We're creating this energy. And I've come across 9Fehinti recently. I've only just met him like almost by accident. But the thing around climate change, it's really personal to me. My mother actually lost her house in floods. She lives in a developing country in Central America. So I know firsthand the damage that's actually doing to our planet. And so I've always seen climate change, well, not always, but as, well, the people who started should fix it, because we're not in those kind of positions to actually have any impact, have any effect. And so I've come across this Black British actor, and it was like, oh my gosh, he's got a perspective that can actually alter how I'm seeing things, that I can make, actually, that I do matter, and that your actions matter, and how you think matters around you. And this is all about feeling connected, isn't it? To around you. And actually, Indigenous people, Indigenous cultures were more connected to the earth. I feel in many ways we were protectors of the earth, right? So I'm going to hand you over to 9Fehinti, and I believe he's going to show us a film that he's recently put together. And after the film, we can have some questions and answers for him. So enjoy. The film will not be recorded. Maybe some of the question Q&A and afterwards will be recorded. So I'm going to now stop the recording, and we can speak afterwards. 9Fehinti, do you want to just introduce yourself while we're still?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is 9Fehinti Balogun. I'm all the things William said, plus I guess other various creative things. I spend a lot of my time talking about climate change, but also helping to get people in the position to organise. I'm going to play a film that I worked on from 2019 to about 2021. It is based on an argument I had with my mother, where she couldn't understand why I was sacrificing my career to be in the climate movement. And I couldn't understand why she wasn't sacrificing everything to save our lives. We argued for a long, long, long time. And on our last argument, I took my phone and I put it under a pillow and I recorded every single word because I wanted to prove her wrong with her own words. Then I listened back to it and I thought, oh crap, she's got some good points. And I took those voice recordings and I designed a lecture around those voice recordings. Then I traveled the UK, taking this lecture to as many communities as I could, trying to make sure that we knew that it wasn't about climate change, it was about climate justice. The film is going to talk a little bit about that and explore it in a way that makes it really, really understandable. I'm understanding that my connection isn't fantastic. So, William, I've sent you a backup link. So if you could prepare that in case my link fails, that'd be wonderful. It'd be really cool. It'd be really, really great if everyone could just comment in the chat just who you are and like just a little something to share, just to open that space up to be able to have that whilst we're here, and we can read that in our own time, but just a little sharing something about yourself in the chat would be wonderful. Only because you're going to hear a lot about my life, and so it'd be nice to open up that space. So just comment in the chat whenever. I'm going to prepare this film.
Gosh. So can we please unmute ourselves? Please make yourselves seen and heard. Can everyone just unmute themselves, please, and give Feinti Balogun a huge round of applause for this.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Powerful.
Balogun.
Powerful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Really powerful.
I will need a few hours to actually process the impact of this video. I mean, I'm just like, I'm almost shaking from what you've done, because you've synchronized so many different modalities of teaching us. So it's like a gift from our ancestors, from the multiple talent that you put in, the singing, the humor, the personal touch, the colors. It was so vibrant. I mean, I particularly like all the graphics with the earth, with the scientific explanation. I mean, you covered so many different terrains. I was like moved to tears also when you were having the conversation with your mother, and no one was listening. It was like, okay, what am I doing here? You know, why am I following this cause? And no one was listening, and yet here you are, championing the way forward. And I particularly like the we're not starting from scratch, but there's so many other people actually already of color, already making valuable contributions to global warming, climate change, social justice, all of the different factors. But I want to hear I want to hear from the community here, their thoughts, their questions at Feinti.
I'll start just to say thank you. It was, I think I wrote in the chat that I've never really been that interested in climate change. And, you know, it's always very white, middle class, doing some really extreme things, and never really caught my attention. And it was just really great today to kind of experience it from a Black man, you know, something I could really relate to as well, where I haven't been able to before. And I think it was powerfully and creatively done and geniusly done. It was amazing. And, you know, it caught my attention for the whole hour. So yeah, it was great. And I know you said there's something coming out on Netflix. So I really look forward to, congratulations first and foremost on that. And I really look forward to watching it. So yeah, thank you.
Like to share. Thank you, Fahinti. I was truly moved all the way through, really, and it takes a lot to actually move me with all these range of emotions. I went through a lot and on a journey, and like what Helen says, you know, I often see this as a white middle class movement, and it's really interesting because the universal laws that I kind of are guided by each and every day as an Osarian, interconnectedness, interrelationships, and the law of balance is fundamental. I'm like, how am I living? How am I applying this to my daily life? And what can I do personally in my home and community and family to do more? So it's really inspired me. So thank you.
Fahinti, thank you. I've always had an interest. It sounds crazy as if it was entertainment. It's not. I've been in this climate change conversation, but again with this sense of helplessness and of wondering what I could do, and the power and the passion of your stance, your presentation has really, really made a difference to me today. And my question is, well, what can I do? What can I do? So that's a point of exploration for me. I just feel, having seen and felt all of that there is something, and there's already groups out there, and I have to make that connection and play my part. So thank you.
Thanks. Hi. I also want to say I am and was deeply moved. It's interesting because as I was watching the show, I was actually doing my son's hair, and he's 17, and I'm really pleased that he got to see that as well. So I'm just finishing my psychotherapy training, but part of that for me has been an interest in climate change. But it's interesting that I've seen that as something separate to the race work that I've been doing. And it's really, aside from looking at breaking down the film we saw and looking at why it was so powerful, aside from that, there's my heart's reaction right now, which is, what can we do? How can we continue these conversations? Because I'm having separate conversations in my head about climate change and gaslighting, and that I need to find a way to focus. But I'm also having, and this is why we're here, separate, I run a separate race group for therapists, but it's how to put the two together. And it feels like for all of us, it might be conversations for now, as you said, just keeping that interest there, and those options open so that we can keep talking. But yeah, thank you so much. I did not expect this today. We've been, and I'm going to say we. Tara, come and say hello, quick. We've been really moved. His hair's all over the place. I'm trying to do it now. Up.
Hold on a second, Adiola. I didn't really see this. Can you bring him back, please? I want to see him for real, not just his shoulders, because I've known you for. I've never seen. Come around here. I want to see you. There you are. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're the future of this planet, aren't you? What's your name?
Toro.
Name Toro.
Ade Toro.
Ari.
Ade Toro.
Ade Toro. So you are the future of this planet. So all of us in this room, we owe you and your grandchildren to leave things in a better place, because Some of us already messed it up. So we owe this to you and your generation, right? So we're doing this for you and your grandchildren. So one day you will be in our step, you know, around our age.
Yeah.
And you'll continue this legacy of what Feinti has done today. And so you'll have to teach your children then and your grandchildren, right?
Yeah.
So what you witnessed today is really, really important because we are the generation where we have to really, really make this decision about our involvement. There's no plan B. There's not another planet kind of like, you know, at the edge of the solar system, or even there's no plan B. So this is it.
There's no plan A. There's nothing. There's just not.
So can we live? Can we live? I want to know more about the film, what we can do. I mean, we have a platform for you, Feinti, here. If you want to, you know, put stuff through our newsletter or events, or come back and educate us. But certainly our mission statements on the MNPC will make the adjustments towards climate change as of today. As of today, that will be one of our main objectives. So whatever it is we can do with our energy and our contributions, we need to be enlightened. The quest for true belonging, gosh, it's like we got to save the planet here. We're not going to, we belong to this planet, to one human family, right? I mean, these divisions are really superficial when you really think about it. But these superficial divisions, which are socially constructed, are not only killing ourselves, but killing the planet. There's no plan B. There's no plan B. There's no plan A. Adiola, I interrupted you because I got emotional, but please continue.
No. So I was really just to say, you know, just to ask, how can we connect? How can we keep having these conversations? It feels like that's what we need to do. There's just something here that we're not seeing. Yeah, about it's not just the interconnectedness, it's it feels like a conspiracy theory, you know, that something is happening and there's a focus on this here, so we don't focus on this here. But it feels like we need to find a way to bring everything into focus, because, you know, we're looking at, oh, well, you know, race matters, which race, which, you know, of these specific issues, okay. But in the meantime, you know, the earth is, it feels like it's being set up so that the people that are disadvantaged economically now will literally have no land to live on. Yeah, it just feels like something else is happening, and that we need to focus on the potential for something really dire could happen. Anyway, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Pauline, you want to say something?
The film was wonderful, and I think sometimes in the doom and gloom of everything, how do we because I was on the London Climate Action Week webinars, which I just put on the group, and I think, how do we look at alternatives? We operate within different worlds as diasporians, so how do we take the best of what we have in this time and say, let's look at food growing, let's look at upskilling ourselves, let our men who are electricians and learn the heat pump, solar panels. How do we find the glorious things within ourselves and work on that and leave the doom and gloom to the ones who perpetuate it? Because I think it's a great opportunity, because what I think in a lot of these economies, yes, there is the impact of nature, unfortunately, because of what's happening in the West, the increase in the targets affecting the South, whatever, Africa and the Caribbean. But what do we do? Because that's going to be a new economy now growing. The economies are not going to have I know they have tried to put the fossil fuel and stuff onto those countries and mismanage, but how do we, as the intellectual and the ones who have resources in the West, support those? It's a new movement now, and I think we concentrate on our movement and leave others with their movements. It's a time for us to instigate the change that we need to do.
Brilliantly put, Pauline. Thank you. And we will look out for that link. I think it sounds like we are all very motivated and fired up by this morning. For me, that's life-changing, what I've witnessed. I'd like to see that film a few times, actually, and promote it. So, and more questions, please, more comments?
Mandy's got her hand up.
Mandy?
Thank you. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to quite articulate what I want to articulate. And first of all, you know, like everyone else, thank you for that film, Hinti. There's an awful lot in there to consider. I kind of made my own contribution prior to the pandemic. I used to organise and run a repair cafe, actually in Bristol, which is quite a segregated area. It was in St Paul's, which is an area where there's lots of sort of people of colour. And I've stopped doing that because of the pandemic, but I always noted that that people from the local community didn't really volunteer, and I'm sure there's a lot of skill sets there that could have been useful, and I wasn't really able to understand why that wasn't happening. We did have my person who helped me as Black lady from Canada, and one of our repairers was another Black lady, but they were also slightly outside of the community for different reasons. And I had made an approach to Extinction Rebellion and had been very irritated by their response to us. And it's been my observation that they get a lot of money, they are a white movement, and they will piggyback onto other movements and kind of make themselves prominent within that. And my sense is that their agenda is to maintain the status quo. They're very shallow. They haven't made the link between climate change and the exploitation and greed around the world. They will talk about, for instance, moving to electric cars without considering that where the cobalt is going to come from, and that they're talking about mining the seas to get that, which is just insanity. And I'm wondering how I can see that division is what has enabled these practices to happen, and this exploitation and ultimately this destruction of our planet has been the manufactured division of people, and undoing that division feels really key to change. But also, how do we work with these white people? It kind of needs to happen. How do we stop them dominating and co-opting and changing the message to suit their own means? Anyway, I'll stop there. I hope that was kind of coherent.
Yeah. And there's more questions that are coming out today, aren't there, than solutions or answers, but it's getting us really thinking and inquiring as to how do we move forward and unite when so many of us are struggling in so many different areas. And sometimes it doesn't seem like our problem. It wasn't like created by us. Why should we solve it? And so sometimes there's a real disconnect. Maybe Feinti could answer some of these questions, or has some comments.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for your comments and questions, and I'll try and be as diligent and as useful as I can be. And I'm sorry if I freeze, just let me know, because my connection is not stable, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll touch on the sort of general idea of climate change after the film. My biggest fight at the minute is changing understanding from climate change to climate justice, right? But in the understanding of climate change to climate justice, we have to understand that climate change is not the problem. Climate change is a symptom of the problem, in the same way that all other forms of oppression are symptoms of a problem, which is white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Like, that's quite simply, the problems that we have in terms of race, sex, climate change would not exist if they didn't make people money. And it actually is that simple. So when we talk about, okay, we didn't perpetuate this problem, we didn't. We know we didn't. We know historically that money comes from slavery. We know that there is still a modern colonialization happening now through cobalt, through mining, through Shell's involvement with all these different African countries. What we also know is that in the next 30 to 40 years, there are some countries that will not exist because they will not be inhabitable, like Pakistan or North Africa. And what we'll see is millions and millions of brown faces migrating to Europe. That's what will happen. That's what we're already seeing. It's what we've already experienced with Syria. That whole war, was perpetuated by climate change resources, where people were moving in from the outskirts into the cities, and the cities were oversaturated, and that led to all sorts of other things being. So we know that's going to happen. So we know that in the future, the biases and the racism will only be perpetuated by the people that caused it. So then we basically have these huge existential concepts, right? Which is, white supremacy and capitalism and the patriarchy, huge concepts that are very hard to become finite aspects to fight. And I have been doing a lot of talks recently, and the thing that I have been using to sort of pin it down is fighting the biggest aspect that we are taught, which is the individualist aspect. And we talk a lot about it in the film. Individualism does not win wars. Individualism doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't. It is an idea sold to us like all the other ideas, because we think, oh, well, I'm so small, I'm so powerless, the least I can do is recycle. And once I've recycled, I am doing my part. Or, I'll eat a little bit of meat. As we know, we are not the perpetuators of the problem. In the Black and brown communities, often we're the ones not driving around, and we're the ones not using these materials. It's a company and legislative problem. Most of these emissions come from companies and governments and back lobbying and investment in fossil fuels through pension funds. Like, it's all set up within the system. So then coming back to it, it's about the system rather than these other issues. They're all connected. So when we're fighting for justice, we're fighting for climate change, we're fighting for climate justice. So coming back to groups, where can we be useful? I've been talking to a lot of different companies and groups in this last week and trying to do a lot of organizing, because what I need them to realize is that when it comes to grassroots movement, they need space, because they're willing to do the work that these other companies are not willing to do. There's something like an amazing statistic, I'm going to get this very, very wrong, so please don't quote me, like something like 5% of the indigenous communities protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. So it's not that these groups that we have need saving, they just need space. So that's part of the work that I'm doing. In terms of tackling your question, Mandy, about how do you work with well-meaning white people that have internalized racism and don't understand the context of things. I think a lot of work has been done within XR and within a lot of the movements to move forward. And I've personally seen that work. Not to say that, that's where it is. But also along those lines, there are, as I said in the film, groups that have existed for a long time. So there's a website called Climate Reform, which you can check out, which is a website specifically for Black and POC movements and people within the movement. It's a whole database, and they're trying to do the work of bringing forward people that have been doing this work for a long time. So it's not like you have to go to these groups in order to get your autonomy. The next step from there is the webbing. We need webbing within these movements and communities. I think we are often tricked again, or we believe that we have to start something from scratch. And it's very rare that, especially within activist movements, that an idea is original. Someone has probably already tried it, or has been sabotaged, or has been doing it successfully, but nobody knows about them. And the work is actually finding them and aiding that, or being able to learn from that. So what Can I Live is doing at the minute is we're trying to take the film round and do these screenings, have as many people as we can come to these screenings, and then have people within those movements at the screenings. So then afterwards, when we're having conversations like this, you can begin a conversation with, how did you do that? And what are the problems with this? And how can I do this in my community? And da-da-da. All about this webbing and connecting, because the bigger our community, the more our knowledge, the more we can do. Alongside that, I think and please tell me if I'm going too quickly or if I'm not hitting the points, because I can go back. Alongside of that, we have a government that hates us, that actively hates us, and is trying to destroy whatever future we can have in this country, as people of colour, as different incomes, and we know this. We see this through everyday policy. The new, I don't know if anyone knows about the new policing bill. There are 2 new bills that have gone through, which reduce protest laws, increase police powers. Now police do not have to have reasonable suspicion to stop and search you. They can just stop and search you. They can criminalise you for protest without having to prove that you were a criminal. We're running towards this sort of like fascist nightmare, and I don't say that to scare you. I say that to pin down my point of justice over the sort of like idea of climate change. So there are all sorts of movements that are working very specifically to bring down an aspect of climate change, but one of them being that this government works in fear, right? A lot of it works in, okay, this is how it's going to ruin my life, or this is how my life is going to be affected. They are banking on fear to keep us in place. And so how do you combat fear? We combat fear through information and community. So there are things like the Kill the Bill movement, Cop Watch, Hackney Cop Watch, Cop Watch UK, Sisters Uncut. There are all these different grassroots movements have been doing the work of information and community. And I'd love for you all to get to know them and to see whether you can find a place with them, or at least talk with them. But they hold workshops. So that was Cop Watch UK. They have a Twitter and an Instagram. Sisters Uncut, again, have a Twitter and Instagram, as well as Kill the Bill. These are just different grassroots movements that are working to inform as many people of their rights when it comes to police, of how to monitor police, to know your rights when it comes to arrests. So it's not you getting arrested, that's you being able as a citizen to document an arrest, to give that to the person so that when they sue or like file charges against the police, they have a document of what actually happened. So these are just everyday things that I think as citizens, we are actively not taught is our right to know. This is all part of the climate justice movement. All of these things, because the more we are aware of our powers, the more we're able to organise and do. And part of the work that I'm doing at the minute, why I'm doing these screenings and doing these talks, is because we are building in the cyclical nature of change and revolution. There will come a time very soon where doing nothing will be impossible. And we're already seeing it, because the cost of living is going up. food prices are going up. Like, we know what's happening, and we know what's happening around the world, but we're getting to a boiling point. So the work that I'm trying to do at the moment is inform and ready as many people as possible, so that when it gets to that point where we are fighting, and we're already doing this, we have the connections, we have the people, we have the rights, we know what is possible and what we are allowed to do and what we are comfortable with doing. Moving us towards the active citizen part of activism. I think activism can be quite an alienating word, because it means that you are, you know, this, that, and the other, or you're a hippie, or blah, blah, blah. But activism is simply being an active citizen. And I'm sure there are so many of you in this group that are quote unquote activists, just the way that you have been involved within your community or your families, or literally sending money home to your family outside of the UK so they can rebuild, or they can have food, or they can, this is all part of being an active citizen within a community. So changing what you think it is with how you view community involvement. So just to clarify everything that I've said so far, there's climate reform for a reference of loads of groups that and people that are doing, and that are of colour. There are the different grassroots movements teaching you your rights with police, and everyday sort of law, basically knowing how you can fit into that, what you're allowed to do. So you have a knowledge as to if you see, and police break the law all the time. So knowing how you can deal with that and document that and know your rights with that is another thing. Then also meeting people within your community. So that those things, quite practically, the things I'm putting forward now, so I don't leave you with just ideas. The next steps with that as well is finding your place and your tolerance, or rather what you are able to do. And I think that a lot of the mental work and the meditation allows us to ask the question, what is my capacity? What is my capacity? Activism or anything to do with justice, as I'm sure you know, does not have an end goal. It doesn't have like a finishing line. You don't just like do this thing and go, oh God, I did it. Yes, I solved it. Which means you can do it forever. Every night, all night, every day, 24 hours. It will never. Yes, climate reform. I can Google it and put it in the chat in a second. It will go on forever and forever. So you have to work out, what is my capacity? Where do I fit? And how can I feed into myself? And I say this as someone who burns out all the time, because I speak from personal experience. I deal with quite a lot of anxiety and a couple of like health issues that are perpetuated by anxiety and so on and so forth. And the biggest problem with those is I'm like, what am I doing? How am I going to help? Like everything is burning and everything is going wrong. And how can I be a part of this, that, and the other? What really helps is finding your capacity and understanding the longevity of the movement. Where am I the most useful? How is this action strategically, and this is a little bit more advanced in this conversation, I think, because I feel like a lot of us are just entering that. And I think if you're leaving this conversation thinking, okay, I'm going to look into this, or what is my capacity, or going into that, then that is a beautiful thing. And I think that is a wonderful thing to come from this. A further step from that is then the working out, what is my capacity and where can I be? Unions as well, within work unions, it's all about community. The more we are grouped together, the more our power is. So I don't know if anybody's part of a union, whether you want to link that union up to different grassroots movements and their works. So like I know within my union for acting, we have equity. Within equity, we have Equity Green New Deal. And what Equity Green New Deal has done is it's divested the equity pensions away from any fossil fuels. And that again is a direct link to the kind of work. So all of these things, they are connected and things we can do. Again, every movement for justice is a movement within climate justice, because a thing I like to think about is, if you take a second now to just imagine technology has been invented, a new technology has been invented, which can take all the emissions in the air and convert it to friendly oxygen particles, like beautiful gases. Just imagine that for a second. And now I'd like to ask you, who do you think gets to use it? Because it's not going to be the poorest areas. It's not going to be the communities that need it. And it's not going to be for free. This is the idea with climate justice, is that regardless of what technologies may exist, regardless of what people say they're doing, unless it is people-based, unless it is within the earth and community, it doesn't really mean very much. Which then sort of gives a lot of more power if you're saying, well, you know, I'm fighting for this, that, and the other. This, that, and the other are not separate issues. They're not an issue over here. If you're fighting for racism or disabled justice, if you're fighting for this, whatever your cause is, it's not a separate issue. It's part of the same. So we bring it back. We bring it back to, okay, I'm fighting for this, and I can be connected with boom, 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 boom. The connection part is the difficult bit, because we have been systemically broken from each other in order to keep the powers in power. Because it works, unions work, protesting works, being ungovernable works, and that's why the government is making it harder and harder and harder for those things to be available. So just to round up with anything, and also if anybody has any questions, let me know before we finish. Those, find your capacity, find your place. Do not think you are on your own, because you're not. You never have been. And that is a lie that is used to disempower us. And what helps defeat that lie is literally being with people, literally being in community with other people. As you are in this film, and as I like to say when we finish screenings, everybody in this space with you is going through the same thing that you are. Like, if you look on your screen now, and all those little like windows of people, they're all having the same thought. They all went through the same thing. So even in this moment, you are in community with others, thinking about what they can do and how I can be a part of that. And that's a beautiful thing, and just acknowledge that. So invest in the movement, find your capacity, find your place. For the Can I Live team, the Can I Live campaign, we're trying to reach as many different communities as possible, to do more of these screenings, to link up with grassroots movements, to make sure people know their rights, know what they would like to do, to give them options. So we're more than happy to receive loads of people to help with the campaign. And I can leave an email in here with that, and we're working towards that for the next 2 years and further. And yeah, that's my spiel. So thank you very much for listening to me and asking questions. And I hope I was useful.
So I have a little symbol here for Fehinti, that may he be supported by all the ancestors, by all the love. You've touched a lot of hearts right now. So may you be supported in all your endeavors, in all the hindrances and all the blocks, and all of that be eased, not removed, from the work that you're doing in you've been put here for such an important mission today. So thank you again. And last night we started a libation ritual, and I bought this mimosa tree, which Rhonda McGee was the first. So I'd like to invite you also to do a dedication. So libation ritual, which is originally an African ritual, is about pouring alcohol or water into the ground. So this is a tree that's going to be put in the forest, and the whole community is now being invited to do a dedication. So is there anyone you'd like to do a dedication to, or anybody else as well?
Oh, wow. Is there anyone I'd like to do dedication to? Maybe my generation. I'd like to do dedication to them, simply because I feel like, I mean, this is going to be for everybody really, but specifically, selfishly, it's really hard when you are in a city like London and you live somewhere for 2 years and then you move and then you move again, to feel grounded in anything. And I want to dedicate a grounding future, a space to feel safe and to have without the idea of owning, to own without having.
Oh, to have without the idea of owning. Incredible. Thank you. And you know, you have a family here today that's with you, and we're right around you, right behind you, right in front of you. And let us know when you want to come back, any information you want to put through the newsletter. I have included also our community WhatsApp group. So that's now in the chat. If any of you are not on it, it's the best way of keeping in touch. I've also put our crowdfunding page. And the reason I put that is because we have reduced all memberships by 50% for you to become an MNPC member, which goes, a lot of your fees go back into the community. So right now, Hyacinth Taylor, one of our mindfulness supervisors, is running a retreat in Essex on next Saturday, silent retreat all day. But there's a lot of other up-and-coming mindfulness teachers that we are supporting from the Black community and even further around all people of color. Tonight we have Eugene Ellis from the Black African Asian Therapist Network from 6 to 8, a journey towards belonging. And during the week at 7:15, early in the morning, we will have half an hour of meditation with various community members. 7:15, we have evening meditation. So tomorrow morning, I will be offering loving kindness meditation for people of color. And in the evening, I will be offering standing meditation. We also have Reiki. We have Buddha Young from the West London Buddhist Center coming in to do coming home. So a lot of people with a lot of talent here coming forward. And Feinti, you have the link. It's the same link if you want to join us. Otherwise, we will see you soon. What else? What else? Any final comments, anyone? So it's a lovely day. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy your day of practice, whatever it is you're doing. Go within. Self-care, self-love. What you're doing today to really affirm your sense of belonging, your real sense of connection. And be touching the earth. And I'm like, oh yes, I belong here. Belong here, no plan B. It's plan A, isn't it? Our generation, you know, we're that pivotal moment, aren't we? That Goldilocks moment, aren't we, Feinti? Goldilocks moment that anything could happen, right? You know, anything could happen. Okay, so one final round of applause, everyone. Please unmute yourselves. Please unmute yourselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
very, very, very much.